Hi, everybody. It's 3 o'clock. We are going to kick off. We'll just see how many people still trickle in, but we are very excited to be bringing you this webinar today. We're going to introduce you to our newest feature, which is AI usage measurement. We actually launched this feature on Tuesday this week, so some of you may have seen it or even had a little play around with it, but we're going to fully introduce you to it today during this 1 hour. We will cover what this feature does and also what it doesn't do, just so you're fully aware, some of the technical background, where you'll find it in the calculator itself, what information you'll need to fill it in and get the carbon result for your AI usage, what best practice looks like, and we've also collaborated with unveil to bring you a footprint for a fully AI production, so you'll have that context as well. And we've created a footprint for what an equivalent in-camera version might look like to, again, give you a bit more context. Finally, we'll finish with a short Q&A. So if you have questions, please do pop them into the chat, or into the Q&A function, sorry. And Sophie will join us a bit later to put some questions to us. There isn't a chat function, so please just put the questions in the Q&A. After the session, everyone on the call and those who weren't able to make it will get an email with various helpful links, including to the methodology that we use for measuring AI. So keep an eye out for that afterwards. Don't just immediately delete it. It's got some handy stuff in there. And before we get into it, I just want to say a quick thanks to our industry partner, Get Set Higher. Their support allows us to put on webinars like this, so we're massively grateful to them for being by our side for the last few years. And Bryony, I think you're on the call, so hello, Bryony. In terms of who is with us today, so you've got myself and my co-pilot, AI joke there, Tom O'Brien, who is the carbon calculator coordinator for AdGreen. And a bit later on, we'll be joined by Darren Khan as well, who is the global CEO and co-founder of unveil. We do also have Angel from Hiili. We'll explain who Hiili are in a little bit. Is also on hand for any very technical questions. So if you do have a really fiddly one, we technically could answer it during the Q&A, which again, Sophie will lead. So I'm going to now hand over to Tom to talk about what this feature actually is.
Cool. Thank you, Jo. So this is a new 11th activity area entered into the carbon calculator. Just to clarify, this is not using AI to finish your final footprints. This is the measurement of the usage of AI in production. So this appears across pre-production, shoot, and post-production. It enables the measurement of text, image, and video generation, not audio generation just yet. That may come though. It appears in early insights, and it appears in final footprints. So it calculates the carbon emissions of the electricity of kilowatt hours used for each response generated during inference. The carbon calculated by Hiili, which I'll explain a bit more shortly, is based on the user's information that's provided. So this is referring to the type of content, the model, so ChatGPT, for instance, and the number of outputs generated. This is then converted into carbon and returned to our calculator via an API. Okay, so a bit more information about Hiili. So they are a joint venture with the University of Carlos III of Madrid. They are led by academic researchers, Dr. Ruben Cuevas and Dr. Angel Cuevas. So a little bit about their methodology. So it's peer-reviewed and scientifically validated. It covers the most popular text, image, and video gen AI models. It's built on years of research and uses a predictive AI simulator, which estimates the emissions based upon AI model size and architecture, as well as the output type, so text, image, video, and then the estimated complexity of the generation. It estimates the kilowatt hours consumption it converted into CO₂e using carbon factors, which are relative to the location of the data centers. And this is because different countries have different energy mixes. Okay, so a couple of things to know. What this isn't, and what it doesn't include. So this doesn't include the carbon emissions associated with water used in the cooling of data centers. It doesn't include the carbon emissions associated with the kilowatt hours of electricity used in the training of models. So by training, I mean the learning process that happens before the models are sent out to the market. It doesn't include the carbon emissions associated with the cloud storage of the responses generated. So this is the images, videos, and texts that are stored actually within the models themselves.
Thank you, Tom. That's arguably the hardest part out of the way. Now everyone in theory knows what this actually does. So I'm just going to remind you guys where this sits within the calculator. So Tom will demo it in a moment. But as he mentioned, this is in both early insights and final footprints. So this is a new 11th activity area sitting alongside all the ones you already know: people, transport, workspaces, catering, etc. It's a completely new area in a snazzy maroon colour. So in terms of early insights, you're going to use an early insight when you are scripting or bidding, and it gives you the opportunity to create some ballpark estimates and compare different ideas or different production routes. It's a much more simplified form compared to final footprints, which asks you for more information, but it gives you an estimated result so that you can use it to understand whether you should go for one route or another. These are only visible to your company. They don't go into the data set that we use, that we report on each year. So these are just for you to kind of effectively play around and see what your idea might look like in terms of a carbon footprint. You can also get a basic PDF report for these as well. So if you want to share them, perhaps with a client, that's quite easy to do. And there's some small analytics there just to show you what that footprint looks like in terms of pie chart. So quite simple to do, gives you more of an estimate rather than a sort of more accurate result. There's only 3 boxes there, and Tom will explain a little bit more about what needs to go into those boxes when he does his demo. So then the other one that you have is final footprints. So this is when you are perhaps wrapping or in sort of, once you've passed the sort of shoot stage, if you're shooting. This will give you more of an actual picture of your production. Again, it's one of the 11 activity areas, and it shows up in pre-production, post, and also in shoot if you have a shoot as well. This one really is giving you more information, and it's the combined impact of multiple final footprints that gives you the opportunity to sort of see what your trends are and make longer term plans about how you might approach production in the future. So whether perhaps an AI route or an in-camera route is better, and what might contribute to any reduction goals that you have as a company. You can get a more detailed PDF for any final footprints that you do. Also, you get some detail from Excel as well. You can export that, and you have an in-progress final footprint, which you want to ideally make finished, and those finished ones go into our data set. Obviously, now we're at the end of the year, we're just putting together that final data set from you guys. So any projects you can get finished before the end of the year, please do. Just a little plug for that, so we can get a really good data set from this year ready to analyze in January. So without further ado, I'm going to pass to Tom to do a little demo.
Okay. Right. So first I'll show final footprints, and then I'll show a demo in early insights. Right. So I open my final footprint. Now, AI usage, as I mentioned, is present in pre-production, shoot, and post-production. So I'll navigate to pre-production. So it opens always with the type of content, and then this determines what the activity form will look like. So first I'll select text. Now, when it comes to text, we know that's quite difficult to calculate, to measure the number of responses that are generated in a session. So what we've done is we've provided a copyable prompt at the bottom of the activity form, which you can navigate to and then copy. And then if I go to my AI model, so here I've got Google Gemini open, and then paste this prompt into the session, what it will deliver is all of the key pieces of information that are required for the activity form. So I have 30 responses with an average length of 147 words, that's medium, and then the model is Flash 2.5 Gemini. Okay, so my type of model, Gemini 2.5 Flash, and then country or region. So for all of these, we've included tooltips, which help guide you through the activity form. So here we can see the country or region. This refers to where the person using the AI tool is located. because that's United Kingdom. The number of text responses, 30. The average length of text response, medium. For more information on how to navigate through the activity form, we also have a show example button down here, and this kind of takes you through step by step, explaining in detail kind of what each individual cell refers to. I click save, calculating. We can see here that for text generation, it's a relatively small amount. Joe is actually going to go through what these numbers mean a little bit later. Okay, I'm navigating to shoot now. And this is for my type of content image. Okay, so my AI model used, so I'm going to use Midjourney. Again, country or region of where the person using the AI tool is located. And then I have the number of images generated. Again, we provided a tooltip here describing what this exactly means. So this means every single image generated during a session on the discovery of an asset. So not just the final image that's selected, every image that's created. So here we've got an example where we've used 3 prompts, and each prompt has delivered 4 image options. The total images is 12. Okay, and then for video, again, the model used, region. The same applies for number of videos. So it's every video that is generated in that session, not just the videos that are selected. So let's go a bit bigger on this one. So we've generated 390 videos, and then the average duration of these videos. So often in video gen AI tools, they have predetermined kind of set duration lengths. So that does make this data collection a bit easier. So in this instance, we're delivering videos that have an average duration of 8 seconds. You can see that is something a bit more substantial. Okay. Navigate across to early insights. Now, much like other aspects of the early insights form, we know that at this stage of production, it's hard to know exactly how many text responses, image responses, video responses will be generated. So we've dialed back the information that's required in this form. And then there's some assumptions that we've made on our side to make that easier. So it's simply just the number of text responses generated, just the total number of image responses generated during the production. And then each image asset is assumed to be 1024 by 1024. And then the number of video responses generated as well. Each video asset is assumed to be 10 seconds long. So that's the average duration length that we've made on the back end on our side. So for the time being, this is obviously really difficult to know exactly how many text, image, and video responses will be generated. But like other aspects of early insights, as AI usage becomes more prevalent and people become more experienced in its usage, this knowledge will become more innate. So like with people, transport, equipment, accommodation, we'll be better equipped at estimating roughly the number of responses we are going to generate in production. We are also going to show an example, which should give some context for roughly how much an entirely AI-produced advert used in terms of text, image, and video responses generated. Okay. I've completed my early insights and final footprints. I can look at my analytics. So go through to the final footprints page. And we can see here, AI has been included as a new input. And that's in the pie chart and also in all graphics at each stage. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. So now to the big question, which I think is what people really want to know. And you've got a sneak peek from what Tom showed you there. How much carbon does AI actually produce? So I think, as with everything, it's all about context. So, this is the new question, but people used to say, how much does virtual production do? Is it good or bad? And it really depends on the context of your project. You might be using AI to create a piece of content entirely out of AI. You might be using it as a small tool along the way in a massive production. So it will always depend how you're going to use it. But I'm hoping in this sort of section of the webinar that we can really show you that context. So first of all, we're going to talk about text prompts. So you saw that Tom did a couple there on the demo. So for this example, these are all things we've got from the tool, obviously. So we've put in that we've done, got 1 response, 10 responses, 100 responses, etc. So we've put it that it's a small prompt, a small response, and it was ChatGPT, and these are the results that we got. So you can see that for using, for getting 1 response back, and Tom's example on his chat was 30, so just getting 1 response would actually be less than a gram. So our measurement for each activity has 3 decimal places, which is basically 1 gram or above. So if you see 0.000, it's less than a gram. If you were to do 10, it's around about a gram. 100, around about 10 grams. It's rounding up each time, so it might be slightly lower. 1,000, you get to 100 grams or 0.1 kilos. And you'd have to do 10,000 or get 10,000 responses to get to 1 kilo. So in relation to, some of you might know about, taking flights and things, very, very low. And I'll come on to a bit more of that in a moment. So if we move on to images, this example, or these examples are using Midjourney. Again, 1 comes in at under a gram. 10, you get to 3 grams. 100, 26 grams. 1,000, 256 grams, or 0.25 kilos. And 10,000, 2.58 kilos. So again, still relatively small numbers. Now, if we go to video, this is where things start to change a bit. So here we're talking about an average of 8-second videos, which is an option in Sora, and they're coming out at around about 1.5 megabytes, which you'd need for your data storage estimation later if you're going to download any of those videos and keep them on your own storage. But for 1, it's around about 113 grams. So for 10, 1.1 kilos. For 100, 11.2 kilos. 1,000, 112 kilos, just over that. And for 10,000, that's when we really start getting into the tons. So 1.1 tons for 10,000 videos. Now I'm going to give you a bit of context. So this is a table, or it will become a table, where we've got lowest to highest in terms of activities. So here are some example activities. So going back to that 100 videos using Sora, so that's 11.27 kilos. So if I was to store those 100 videos on a cloud for 1 year, that would be just around about 2 grams. So the storage is less than the actual generation of the ads themselves. But also it depends what size those videos are. They might be 1.5 meg when you download them, but you might start working with higher res files, for example. So you might have higher res ones to store as well. The more you store, the more carbon it's going to be. Now, in between those 2 items, we've got a wardrobe item in terms of the amount of carbon. So 10 adult outfits that are going to be reused afterwards. That comes in at 1.79 kilos. I feel like I'm on top of the pops. Then coming up next, we have the equipment transport example here. So we've gone for 100 miles traveled by an NGV. We selected it was unknown cargo weights. That's just average cargo. That comes in at 253 kilos. Higher than that, we've got catering. This example is 60 meals with a mix of meat, fish, and veg and vegan meals. That's 393 kilos. And then something that you may have done before or might have put on your budget before, 1 business return flight London to Cape Town, 12.6 tons. So I think hopefully this gives you a bit of context about where AI might sit in terms of how quote unquote bad it is or how good it is. Because I think a lot of people are worried about it being extremely bad, but obviously it's all about context and scale. If you were to do thousands and thousands and thousands of videos, you would reach a significant number, but it depends how you're going to apply AI to your particular production. Okay, so next up, we are going to look at an actual example. So we are going to actually bring in our guest here. So Darren, if you'd like to unmute yourself and pull yourself on camera, please, that would be great. Thank you. Hello, Darren. Darren's in another room in the building. Thank you for joining us. So I am just going to ask you to tell us a little bit about NoveAI first. So Darren Khan is the co-founder of NoveAI. So Darren, tell us a little bit about the company itself.
Okay, so we are a creative technology group powered by some brilliant humans. I think that's really important. We're kind of craft idea first, and then really the tools, we use a mix of AI and CGI and a little bit of kind of inside knowledge. And you probably know this, a lot of things today, maybe tomorrow, can't be done in AI. And what we've discovered on the journey, that sometimes we need a blended mix of AI and CGI. And really we call it the complexity. So when we have a script, that's the first thing we look at. Does your script, can it be done in AI, or does it need a mix of two? The co-founders that I've known for 8 years are based in Ukraine, Poland, Valencia, for obvious reasons. And they are technologists first, because in Ukraine, Lithuania, they learn technology from 11. So they're coders, technologists and creative production people. So their transition from, let's say, traditional to CGI to AI is not really a transition. It's just another tool. And we look at kind of AI as the collaborator, and things like CGI are tools. So because you collaborate with AI. We have 3 studios. One is kind of ads, one is influencers, not for today, and the other one is e-commerce. So we have 3 very distinct studios. But what underpins that is obviously we're very conscious around sustainability. I've worked very closely with Joe a long time, so this is really exciting. When I was invited to participate, we were right in the middle of an ad. So yeah, that's kind of
timing.
Right. Yeah.
So when we approached Darren, I think Darren, we were having a conversation about something probably completely different at the time. But I was telling him about this new feature that we were developing, and Darren told us about a project he was working on for this brand, Terre di Santivo. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And it's a completely AI-generated piece of content, and we were obviously very keen to understand how many prompts went into it, what that might look like in terms of footprint, and Darren very kindly was happy to share that. So tell us a little bit about the client and how they approached you and what they were looking for, and kind of why all AI was the right way to go.
Okay. So the brand is stocked in Waitrose. It's a premium brand. They obviously have distribution in Waitrose across the UK, but they also have their own director website. They had social, I'd say kind of infomercial, advertorial stuff, but they really wanted to use the power of TV and the safety that brings. Clearly, as a, let's say, challenger brand, budget was the first thing. So that didn't allow him to send a team. So that was kind of off. So that's when we kind of stripped it back and said, well, why don't we look at AI? We advised, having looked at their creators, because we do have some creators that, and I love food and travel. So what they weren't telling was that kind of whole farm to fork story, that the history of where they're from. It goes back to hundreds of years, and really that kind of authentic storytelling, which is kind of, you know, I think the way that food brands especially should be telling their stories. And it was all around driving people to the website. There's also the consideration that some of the environments they would be sound off. So we had to consider all of those things. We wrote the script. The client then, through them briefing us about their brand and platform and ambitions, we wrote the script, they revised it, and from that point we then now have a script which is a prompt, and we're ready to go. The 3 elements are obviously the visual, the VO and the music. So all those 3 things then have to align. The second stage is we create kind of 5 seconds as a test to make sure we kind of on the right path. Does it look right? Does it look authentic? Are you happy? Obviously that's something you can't do in normal production. And then we're into production, and the 3 things are working in tandem. So you've got the script, the visual and the VO and the music. All those things are being processed and generated to create what came out there and was a 40-second ad. And then with the client, we go through revisions, which is all put into the data form that we had to fill in, adding things, adding bottles. You'll see things that are brought in and out to when we get to a point. just say we did test an Italian voice, but it sounded a bit like kind of Gio di Campo, and the client actually wanted a traditional English voice. It's Waitrose, a bit more upmarket. And then once that was done, it's sent to Clearcast. So one of the things we do is the whole delivery. So we're Clearcasting it, and then we deliver it to channel. So we try and take all the heavy lifting off the client because they know they're busy or don't understand the process of clearance and delivery. And it will go on there next week.
Amazing.
Really exciting.
Okay, cool. That's very cool. So we're gonna let everybody watch the video now. Now, because of the internet, basically, we're not going to attempt to stream the video across this webinar. So what we've got here is a QR code. So if you scan this QR code, this will take you to a web page where you can watch this video. So we're going to just give you a minute or so. It's 40 seconds long. So we'll give you a couple minutes to watch this while you are on this call, and then we'll pop back and we'll show you the footprint for this particular ad and a comparative in-camera example. So we'll just leave you to do that now. We'll have a look at some of your questions in the meantime. Okay, hopefully everyone has managed to do that. Yes, Sophie, perhaps you can pop the link. Someone's just asked about the posting the link. If you can do that, that would be amazing. So hopefully that worked for all of you, or those of you who wanted to view that ad. I think it's really interesting for us to be able to share a real life example and then to be able to actually understand what went into it. So Darren, any other notes on the process? I know you shared quite a bit before we watched the video, but any other notes on the process that you think might be interesting to share before we talk about the actual footprint? And I'll hand over to Tom to do that in a second.
I suppose we obviously work really closely with the client on the kind of composition. All of that is actually from the farm in Puglia, so it's kind of not reimagined as some sort of random. So the shot at the beginning is actually the farm in Puglia. We work really closely on representing these hand painted. If you want them, go to Waitrose. I haven't got shares, but they are present. I wish I did. And telling that really authentic story. And I can think of 100 brands that you probably see on the supermarket shelves that could an equally interesting story, which isn't your kind of traditional supermarket ad. So we try to give it a real flavour and the voice, and the music is original instruments from Puglia. So it's not, again, not random. So we really try to sort of keep the brand at heart and make sure that comes through. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. And I think what's interesting from our point of view is obviously learning how many prompts went into each bit and how the script is used to make the images are used to make the videos. So it's kind of a process of moving up through those sort of prompt types as you go along. So thank you, Darren. I'm now going to hand over to Tom, who's going to talk about what the actual footprint looked like.
Yeah, so we worked with the team at unveil who generated this piece to gather a full data set, and included in this is 196 short, so that's less than 150 words, text responses were generated, 53 image responses were generated, and then 38 video responses were generated, and this was an average of 6.8 seconds long. So on top of this, we also included information regarding work spaces, travel to and from these workspaces, meals that were purchased, and also the cloud storage required to store the final material. So in doing this, we generated a final footprint, and the total tons of CO₂e that was recorded was 0.13. So it's 0.13 tons in the full AI execution. I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a couple of slides. So to provide a comparison for this, we basically designed a realistic in-camera execution that kind of you could compare to this full AI production. So this was using a UK-based director and producer on a one-day shoot in Italy, direct to client with local crew. And we tried to complete this, we did complete this final footprint as detailed as possible. So this included all the workspaces, office, home, suite days, a few AI images generated for treatment. So 7 local crew, cast, local client, this UK director and producer, there were like a return flight to Barry, car transport for all people to and from set, 4 nights in a hotel in Barry with breakfast, 1 Luton van for equipment transport, and then meals, props, and then data storage on top of this. And this generated a carbon emission of 2.18 tons of CO₂e. When we put these two next to each other, we can see that the full in-camera execution, whilst being quite significantly less than the average project size for 2024, as it's fairly limited crew, 1 day of shooting, is still quite significantly larger than the full AI execution. And this is largely due to the quite dramatic reduction in people and equipment transport emissions. And what you can see in the AI execution is that workspaces emerge as the largest emission source. What's also worth noting in the AI execution is that AI usage does provide quite a notable contribution to the overall total carbon emissions, but remains significantly smaller than what would have been the traditional transport-related emissions. And so therefore the resultant drop in these transport-related emissions has led to quite the significant difference between the total tons of CO₂e.
Yeah, just to touch as well on the average project size. So these are both significantly lower than the average project size that we found from last year's data set in 2024. The biggest project last year was around, I think, 350 tons, just over. So these are both significantly smaller than that. And the amount of people transport emissions is on average around 71%. So you can see for the AI execution, obviously they're much, much smaller because we're just talking about people going back and forth to that suite at the end of the process. I think what's really interesting here is that this is just one way to execute, or 2 ways, let's say, to execute a script. And there are lots of other ways this could be done. This could equally be a 50-person crew, or, a sort of 50-person on-set job, lots of clients, crew members, the full sort of team. If it was, if they were looking for a different kind of way to execute this and there was a different budget. So as Darren sort of said, it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not necessarily the way that everything will be done. And what we're giving you here is a kind of a way to measure these different options that are available to you based on these new tools that we're using. So I think it's been a really interesting exercise for us to kind of understand what these things look like, and also to understand how many prompts does go into, or how many responses does go into making an ad that is fully AI, or even if you wanted to create perhaps one scene in your production with AI and it complements the the rest of the way you were going to originally do it. It's, as you say, a tool in the toolbox. So it's been very interesting to kind of learn all of this information over the last sort of weeks and months. So yeah, so moving on to a bit of best practice, Tom, if you're using AI.
So I think kind of building off of that, the number of prompts it takes to deliver the correct response. So it is all about context. So on a personal basis, the emissions associated with AI is low. It's very small, particularly for text, also for image, but for video, it is not insignificant. So for reference, when measured in the carbon calculator, a 15-second video generated in Sora is roughly equivalent to 1 kilometer's travel for a petrol car. So that kind of gives you roughly the idea of kind of the amount of emissions between video generation and transport. So at the industry level, this can really, really scale. Prompting smart. So refine your ideas first and don't be afraid to use text-to-text generation. It has an incredibly low kind of emission portfolio. So it's better off to work within that to then refine your prompts before moving into image and then video. In your sessions and your folders, so this is really important for data collection. So whenever you're working in a session, make sure you label it clearly and only work within that session, particularly for text. So if you're building like lots and lots of responses, save that within that session, and then you can simply apply that prompt right at the end of it. For images and videos, you can kind of find them a bit easier because they are stored in specific folders. Just be sure to name them. And reduce storage. This is specifically for image generation, but reduce storage by working in low-res proxies for as long as possible. And then once you find the desired image, the selected image, upscale it. So I'll now hand over to Sophie, who will be taking the Q&A.
Sophie's been doing a sterling job on the Q&A already in the Q&A box, I've noticed.
I'm trying to keep up. There's some great things. It's really good. And I was just about to answer one, which is, I actually think might be quite a good one for you two to answer. It would be, would AdGreen tools help advertisers to gauge the impact on an AI production versus an original at production planning stage? Because this person thinks it could be a great support to allow them to make an informed decision based on timing, costs, and carbon footprint impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really what Early Insights was made for. We released that feature back in March, but the idea behind it is that you can use it to kind of, if you like, toggle on and off different things that you might or might not do. So using it to sort of add some AI responses into that mix and then sort of perhaps taking them away again, or adding a flight, taking it away. Or you can, create a second one that perhaps is a slightly different iteration of how you might approach your project. So absolutely use that to kind of get a sense of what your different options might look like in terms of footprint and have that informed choice, because that will give you that sort of snapshot. And it means that you don't need to put in the level of detail that you need to put into a final footprint when you might not have it yet. So it gives you the opportunity to find out without putting in too much detail that you might not know at that stage. So yeah, absolutely, Early Insights is the way to go on that one. And as Tom showed you, AI is included in that as well as final footprints. So you're good to go.
Lovely, thank you very much. And I've just put a kind of written answer to that as well in the chat. Somebody else has got a question saying, is it okay to share this information and all the numbers with their teams and on social media?
Yep, absolutely, please do. And if you've kind of got something from this, and hopefully you have, we'd love you to share the information on LinkedIn. We'll happily repost your any posts that we get that we're tagged in. So please do share this far and wide. The email that Tom mentioned that will come out afterwards would include where to find the recording, which will be online probably next week, just early next week. So if there's anyone you think, oh, I wish they'd have been there, you can share that as well. It'll be on our news page and also on our YouTube channel. So if you want to bookmark that right now, it'll be there next week, and you can share it with anyone. So yeah, please do. And kind of big thanks to Darren actually as well for, letting us show a real life ad and being really, showing us exactly what went into it, because I think without that context, this is just sort of a bit abstract. So I think having those numbers in there is incredibly helpful. So thank you to Darren for that as well.
Great. So I'm just trying to keep up with that and pop our news page into the chat here. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. I don't know how many more questions we can fit in, but there's a
Oh, we've lost Sophie.
How many more questions can we fit in?
We've got a bit of time.
We've got a bit of time.
Excellent. Okay, right, I'm going to go for another one. So this is a technical question. This might be one for Tom, because I know that you've been working really hard on this, but it's somebody who really appreciated the prompt that was in the calculator for text, and asking if it's possible to have anything similar there for image and video generation?
Yes, so I would love to say yes, and I did really try, but no. So the issue is that image generation and video generation models don't store the amount of images or videos that they generate. They don't contain that. That's the first issue. The second is they only deliver images or videos. So I kind of worked into maybe I could create a prompt that produces an image that contained this information in it. But the primary issue is that those specific image and video gen models don't store that information. So even if you found the perfect prompt, it wouldn't know. That's the problem. Kind of building on that though, Hiili, so the company that we're working with, our API, they have developed an extension and are developing an extension which is capable of counting the number of outputs, so text outputs and also image outputs, if they're working towards video. And that's something that we're looking to perhaps partner with them on at some point on a later date, even perhaps connecting up to the calculator. But that's future development.
That's a browser extension.
It's a browser extension, yeah. So it essentially, you have the extension open on your browser, and when you open ChatGPT or Sora, it counts the number of outputs and then just stores that in the extension.
Angel, I know you're on the call. Perhaps you can pop a link into the extension so people can have a look and see if it's something they might be interested in procuring. Also, just I noticed someone asked about a source for the carbon figures that we shared. Those figures are from the calculator. So if you were to put in 100 prompts or 100 responses, sorry, or 1,000 responses, you'd get those same numbers. The same if you put in the items that we showed you, the flight, the wardrobe, etc. So the source is the calculator itself. So feel free to make some other little activities and see what they come out like. That's literally what it's there for. So please do go forth and make your own activities and come up with your own comparisons to sort of test out the feature as well. We'd love to see you do that. Just don't finish the football with their tests.
Okay, that's going to lead me into another practical question, because I know that we've got a lot of users here who are really thinking, how can I factor this in? How can I do the measurement? How can I put this in? I have got a question here about the budget parameters. So previously, or we have always recommended that you use your budget and your call sheet to get the information, to enter the information, to enter into the calculator. AI might not be a line item on your budget. Is it something that we still think you can put into your footprint?
I think definitely, it's probably not included because these tools are mostly free.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it doesn't need to be a line item in your budget, which is handy. But I think definitely if it's a thing that you're using and you can measure it, then do put it in. I think it's something that people want to measure. That's certainly what we've been hearing over the last few months quite loudly. So I think the fact that you can, and it's something you can use to determine which route you should take, then definitely measure it. You can't manage what you don't measure, as we always say. So yeah, once you know what you're doing, then you can make informed decisions. So definitely do measure it.
And kind of like I mentioned before, I think this is going to be iterative. Like AI will likely become ubiquitous throughout the production process. But the more productions that do contain it, the more information we'll be able to gather in terms of the size of production in relation to the number of responses generated. So that will be iterative. We'll be able to learn from that.
Yeah, and we totally are learning, and this is definitely a forming and growing process that we're just at the very early stages of. I've got a question here which is talking about exactly that, the inclusions and the exclusions, and the fact that within our methodology, I know, because I'm kind of passing that information on, that we've been quite clear about what we can and can't measure at the moment. And I just wonder if you might be able to give us a little bit of an overview of that, or just point us in the direction of where to find further information if we need to.
This is in terms of what's
it's, for example, it's water usage that we're not able to measure at the moment, and we're focusing very much on energy use as part of measurements that we are able to give information for.
So water usage obviously is a big topic in terms of its use in the cooling of the data centers. unfortunately, it's incredibly difficult to, number one, determine the amount of water that's called for a specific data center, but then to also assign that to a specific response. It proves incredibly difficult, and we're not quite there yet. That's something that we would like to work towards. But yeah, the issue lies in specifically retrieving the information about how much water is used and then assigning it to an individual inference. So that kind of provides a bit of difficulty with water.
If we were able to understand the amount, it would be very easy for us to apply it and include it within that carbon amount that was brought back, because we use it in other ways in the calculator for, water use when you're in the office, for example. But it's just finding out what that number is that we can attribute to each response, which is very difficult to understand at the moment. There's not enough information for us to be able to do that accurately.
Yeah, we have the conversion factors, but not the data behind it to convert.
This tool very much in all sorts of other areas as well. I know we often talk about the biggest one, which is travel and transport, is a chance for people to discuss and to have these kinds of conversations within their team. So it's not going to give you definitive answers for absolutely everything, but it will give you the chance to bring that into meetings and have these conversations with everybody who's present and is taking an interest.
I think it's probably worth us touching on the training element as well that we haven't included.
Yeah,
I know there was a couple of questions about it in the chat, so it'd be good to just cover that one off as well.
So firstly, it's worth mentioning that inference. So inference there's two main stages to the life cycle of an AI model. So that's training and then inference. Training is essentially when the models are learning, feed them loads of data sets. Inference is when the user delivers a prompt, it delivers a response. Inference accounts for roughly 90% of an AI model's energy use in its lifetime, which is why the calculator and Hiili focus on inference specifically. But kind of further to that, accounting for the emissions, the energy usage associated with training is very difficult. And that's because whilst training is it's a fixed quantity and it is carbon intensive, scaling that, relating that and assigning it to an individual inference is very difficult, because of course ChatGPT, for instance, processes about 2.5 billion prompts a day. So the amount of energy that's assigned to training is kind of continually reducing. So that process again of assigning it to a specific inference, which is how we are measuring, is really difficult to do. And because it constitutes a small percentage, we're focusing on inference. So it's again about accuracy and delivering an accurate result.
And the last part is the storage as well. I know John mentioned that we don't include that either. And that's really because we talked to Hiili about this one, because it's very difficult to understand the different sort of variables that the model provider is using when they store those items. So if you imagine when you've done a chat and you've got a whole lot of responses, and a month later you think, oh wait, I already asked these questions, I already got some good answers, I want to go back and get them. They're there for you. I think we haven't yet found an example where they were sort of no longer available. So those are being stored, but how long they're being stored for, at what resolution, these are all things we don't know. So it's hard for us to put a sort of estimated amount onto those. So all of these three things we'll keep thinking on and keep researching. And if we can add them in, we will. We'd love this to be as full and sort of rounded out as possible. But at the moment, this is our kind of first iteration. And these are the reasons why we haven't added those things for now. So we're hoping by being fully transparent about what we haven't been able to include and why, that gives you the trust that we've done the best job we can at this moment in time. And we've obviously had some great help from Hiili to put this together so far. So we'll continue chatting with them about sort of whether we can improve this as well, and whether we can include more models in the future. I know Sophie mentioned about the sort of having enough market traction to be able to include the different models that might be coming up in the rear view mirror. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at the moment. It's the first version of this, not the final version of this. So if we can improve it, we obviously will. But yeah, there's more on that in the FAQ as well, in case our explanations weren't quite so good on the fly. But that will be in the link that in the email that comes out after this as well. Oh, Sophie, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm on mute because my computer keeps making strange noises. I'm just having a bit of a play with the poll feature as well. So I've just put a question in the chat for you to have a look at if you'd like to answer that. Just finding out how much this feature is useful for you, because essentially we're here for you in the production community, and we've created this feature because people have been asking for it. So I'll actually, Tom and Joe, I think this is a good question for you. How do you think people might use it? And what have you been hearing from people asking for it as well?
I think the main feedback from user interviews and speaking to users was that there is not one way that people are using AI. It's incredibly varied in terms of how people are using it. It generally falls into the two camps, where it's the kind of more casual use and then the kind of image and video gen for a specific asset creation. So I think we'll probably see it kind of collect, I guess, into those two camps of the kind of daily usage that might fall more under kind of pre-production, for instance, and then the more in kind of intense usage, which is kind of what we demonstrated, I think, with unveil in terms of actual asset generation.
Great, thank you. Has anyone else got anything that you'd like to add? I'm looking in the Q&A. There's still various questions through few, but I know that Darren is here with us. Is there anything you'd like to add, Darren? Anything you think hasn't been covered in the Q&A that you'd like to share?
Oh, actually, I've just seen a question. Yeah, in terms of what is being calculated. So when I'm referring to the process of inference, what's actually being calculated is the energy used by the GPUs, the graphic processing units, in the data centers. So these kind of huge, this is what you're kind of hearing about, is these huge data centers that are kind of dotted around the world that are using huge amounts of power. And that's because they're processing billions of prompts. And within these data centers, the core are these GPUs, and they're kind of critical to processing the information and delivering a response. They are quite energy intensive. They use a lot of energy. So that's what we're measuring. That's what Hiili is estimating, is in ChatGPT, if I deliver a text response, it's one sentence long, how much energy did the GPUs use in that process? And that's been scaled up, essentially. That's used in text, image, and video. So yeah, it's the energies used by the GPUs.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, these are all quite tricky things to explain on the fly, which is why we have also written them down, don't worry. Embodied emissions is also an interesting one. Oh, sorry, Darren. I was just going to
say just one thing. I think the other way to look at it, I had a kind of big meeting this morning, but we're fixing problems, and I think today it's not recommending one way or the other. I've come from a kind of traditional production and media and everything background, really, but we're fixing problems as well. So we're working with companies, brands that are doing live shoots still, and will continue to. But there are certain scenes that make the creative and the craft better that can't be done in camera. So for instance, we're doing something at the moment where we're creating 3 5-second scenes in AI, which will go in a 60-second ad. Also talking to a fast food advertiser that's shot their main ad, the master, and we are taking a item of the menu out and then putting another one in, which they couldn't do on the day because they don't have time or the money or the budget. So we're inserting and bringing in and out, and actually being a bit more clever with the actual items to allow them to have 20 different ads from the master. And the other thing we're doing, which is kind of transcreational on another level, is we're taking master ads and then we're turning them into AI versions, which are identical, taking out characters, voices. So we're nuancing them and language using your master, and then using AI and a bit of CGI to recreate that ad at a fraction of the cost, at a fraction of the time. So it's just a tool. You either collaborate with the AI or you use a tool like CGI, and it's not really a recommendation. It's there to fix problems. So for Terre di Santivo, it's a budget problem because they can't fly teams over, but they still want to get on TV. They want to keep Waitrose happy. And that was the solution that they had with all of those sort of complex things that and challenges brands have. So and we're doing things that are really highly crafted with, you know, bigger scripts with creative. So it's a real spectrum. It allows a lot of challenger brands, SMEs, to come to market or be on TV that ordinarily wouldn't lever. So it's sort of leveling up the opportunity for smaller challenger brands to play with the big guys. So it's just a
I know
tool.
you also, when we were chatting the other day, Darren, you mentioned about being able to sort of shoot in locations that you wouldn't normally be able to be in, which allows sort of other things to happen that couldn't otherwise. So, you know, again, sort of, you know, solving problems that you couldn't solve in other ways.
Yeah, one's just there's a place you can't shoot. A couple of places, it's just, I won't mention who it is because we're making it, but they just can't shoot. But it was fundamental to the story, the 6-second ad they're trying to do. So we were obviously in conversation, and we're just fixing those 3 5-second scenes that they can't, just physically not allowed to go into. Or the whole idea is either weaker, they can't do, have to come up with a new script. So that's where AI can fix a problem and actually allow you to deliver the creative that may have gone in the bin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. We're just going to give you a bit of a call to action to finish off. So that will take you to the tool. Please do go and have a play around with it. As we said, it really depends on the scale of your production and where AI fits into that. If it's an all AI job, it's obviously going to be a bigger portion. If it's a tool in the toolbox on a larger, perhaps in-camera job, it's going to be a smaller piece of the puzzle. But you've got Tom's best practice tips there from before, so please do use those as well. And you can, as I say, rewatch this webinar. We'll also chop it up into manageable pieces so you can go straight to the bit you want to see on YouTube as well. So you'll be able to go straight to that. So please look out for the recording next week. And just to say another thank you to Hiili for partnering with us on it, and also providing the technical answers in the chat. Thanks for helping us with those. It's a lot of information to obviously try and impart to you guys on the call when some of it can be extremely technical. So thanks, Angel, for breaking that down and helping us deliver that to you guys. And also to Darren from unveil for sharing that ad with us and with you guys, and sharing the numbers as well. I think that's really helpful for context. And also to Get Set Higher again for being part of our industry supporters and helping us put on the event. And yeah, please do go and have a play and drop us any feedback into support@weareadgreen.org. We'd love to know what you think. And we'd love to know what you think of some of the other new things we've launched. We can now, you can now duplicate final footprints. You can duplicate activities. There's a much more detailed export you can get from the tool now as well, breaking down by activity, not just by activity area. So you can see individual activity items for your projects just in time for end of year and analyzing your data more thoroughly. So lots of things that are new. There's also a load of new features that have been, we've made small videos for them, so you can see those on the website as well. So lots of links coming in that email after this. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. It's great to see so many people on this call, and we may well do a West Coast or US version in the January, just to so it's at a more friendly time. So if you have colleagues on the West Coast or in the APAC region, let them know. We may well do another one if there's enough demand. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you very soon.